enjoy it. So the presentation's called Fix Up Look Sharp, and the idea of it is so I can explain to you how I managed to get the chapter that I support in the green and have achieved green multiple times in the past 18 months, which is a brilliant achievement. Looking at this picture, when I look back at it, for me it stands out and says that members are making money, they're following the system, else they won't be able to do it, and they're enjoying themselves. Where you can look at there. And for me personally, always being a member, I love that banter of trying to get to the top of the traffic lights. So to be a director of a chapter that's achieved 100% green is massive for me, and it still always will be massive for me. And if you're into BNI and you know of it, then there is some stats that go back 17, 18 years, and there's only very few chapters that have managed to achieve that so far. So it's brilliant. This is what it was like back then. This is the first time we've achieved it. It shows there, March 22. Brilliant achievement. But I think when me and Louise sat and looked at that, Louise's words were, "You've created a green culture." Which was like, I didn't think about it like that, and I didn't think about the word culture. But when anybody used to say culture to me, especially before I started a chapter, the word culture to me, when it could mean like your religion or your race or something like that, which is quite naive, but you only know what you know. And I didn't use the word culture, not since school. I didn't use the word culture. But now if someone says the word culture to me, it means when people say, we always do that. So if anybody says, oh yeah, we always do that, then that to me is their norm, the culture. So when you send a chapter and somebody does something that's shockingly bad, followed by the words, oh yeah, we always do that, you know the culture's wrong. And I think in Masters there's a lot of things that people do, and I know when visitors come in, and visitors come in from other chapters, and they go, oh I noticed and then people go, oh yeah, we always do that. Like that's Masters culture, which is great, and that's what I wanted it to be. But this image I put up here was something what I got up similar when I Googled it the very first time, and to be honest, it just confused me even more. You know, looking at everything on there, you can look round and you can pick them off word for word, and here it does create a culture, but it wasn't me talking about culture. I didn't really start Masters to say, oh, I want a green culture, I want a great chapter. The only reason I started is because I'm from Stalybridge, and I've seen Stalybridge town buzzing, and I've seen the pubs closing, I've seen shops closing bit by bit by bit, and I thought this really works for my business. If I can start it in my own town, I'm going to make a difference for where I live, and then everybody around here will start to join in and do it. There's a few bits that I mentioned. Louise stole that bit, I didn't know she was going to do. Mark's in my presentation, and he stole a bit, I didn't know he was going to speak as well, but you see that. But I picked certain bits off there, which for me at the time, I tried to focus on, and looking back now, and they're the bits that really stood out. And I said this at a conference, and the first one on there is rituals, like when you sacrifice someone's sweat. No, I'm joking. I actually said that at a conference and the room went dead quiet. But no, the ones that really stood out for me was communication. Communication was a really key bit right at the start. And I wanted to first of all communicate my message to the leadership or to the members at the time of why I wanted to start this. So I got my message across that I'm not doing it for a badge or a pin, you know, I do love a badge. I was doing it to try and help and give back for the people who live around here. And then the second thing I wanted to do is agree how we communicate going forward, i.e. email, WhatsApp. I prefer a WhatsApp, and I prefer a WhatsApp note as opposed to, you know, voice note as opposed to trying to message. And Scott will tell you, and Emma will tell you, if you want to message me at 10 o'clock at night and talk about BNI, I'm happy to chat to you about BNI. It doesn't have to be 8:05 by email. Do you know, so I wanted to agree that, so I'm going to make it easier moving forward. If A, you know why I'm doing it, communicate, and B, how we're going to have our communication going forward. Secondly, with the roles, now this is a big part for me at the start, because you've got to get your roles in place, as in your top table, you've got to get your visitor hosting and all your official roles, but I wanted to make sure that everybody had a role. Now as I'm going through this presentation, I looked at it and I'm looking around the room, there's certain bits of it that are not quite there, certain bits of it have slipped off. But when I first started this, and I'd like to bring it back, and I'd like to keep it as close to this as possible, is get everybody to have a role. As in, even if it's the new guy, Fred, he can do the brews. You know, someone can put the banners up. It doesn't have to be the visitor host doing that. Moving the chairs, I actually spoke about that at a conference. Every time we usually get it, you got to move chairs from here to there. Well, I think, why should the leadership have to do it, or the visitor host have to do it? I think everybody should feel included, even if you're the brew guy, as long as everybody has a role. First thing Scott says here, the first thing Emma says there, together masters we're a team. Well, you're not a team if there's someone who doesn't do something, just turns in last thing, rolls in, does nothing, sits down, job done. You've got to be, I'm not looking at you purposely there, Danny, by the way. But I like the fact that everybody kind of took on some kind of role to help masters get where they were. Now a lot of the people, there's only like the 5 founding members here, but when the first day I wanted to start this BNIMasters chapter, it was next door in the smelliest little old part of this building, and it stunk. I had a really low budget. I went to Costco and I got some bananas and some Danish pastry, and when I was charging £15 for people to come, the amount of people that were offended said it wouldn't work. I had loads of kickback of it. Now 5 years on, you know, you pass this business and everybody's in here and just hearing like what Sam says and, you know, different people saying the bits. I just think boom, mic drop, you know, said it wouldn't work, it worked kind of thing. So for me, that was good. But yeah, the roles, I wanted to make sure everyone had a role and they knew the role, and also don't be afraid to pull someone out the role. If they're not doing the role right, it's not like I hate you, it's just for this business group, you're not quite good in that role at the minute, let's change you over. And that was a thing I had to do a few times, which Scott knows, I've worked with him on different things, he's been on the leadership, but there's been people, if they're in the wrong role, it can damage the chapter, so don't offend the person, just tell them, it's not for you at the time. The other thing with building relationships, I wanted to make sure, you probably noticed that as a director, if you go to other chapters, you should attend your chapter meeting once a month. I am like a bad smell here, I'm here more than once a month, often, and sometimes I'll be on your social events. DC don't always go to social events, and I see people out of the room, and I wanted to go a bit further and make sure that the leadership or whoever it was, I know them, I know the missus' name, or I know, you know, what they're into or whatever, just so you're showing that you care. I think I wanted really people to see that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So I wanted to try and show that by coming all the time, you know, and showing that I'm here and I'll turn up, because I've got a business to try and run, and I'm not, you know, I'm not a super brilliant business that just runs itself. I need to be in that business, and I'm a member of BNI, and I need to do that. So for me to be here and be at DC and get stuck in, it takes a bit of time to do. So I wanted people to know that I'm here because I care and I want it to work, and make sure I built the relationships. And by doing that, then I was hoping that by me building relationships with the key people, so the presidents on my top table, then when a new member comes in, they will then go above and beyond to make that extra time to make a relationship with them. Because without relationships, you ain't doing no business. You might literally, like Scott said, that you have a brick for your windscreen. If there's a windscreen guy here, you'll pass him a referral. But that's just reactive. But if you haven't had time to have a one-to-one, we call it, or a brew, or a whatever, you're not going to build that relationship, and you're not going to be doing business. So I think in Masters, you have got good relationships. There's some newer members that may want to build it a bit more, but your core members and your longer serving members have got a good relationship and they pass good business. Expected behaviour. This was really, really important for me at the start, because I thought if I start this chapter in Staler Bridge and I'm like Mr. BNI and I mess it up, I'm going to create a problem for the local community. I'm going to create a problem for me as a director going forward. So I wanted to make sure that everybody was fix up, look sharp. Now we used to joke about that. It was the song that came on there, and Scott's, if you see the video, my missus and my kids love it, have been taking the piss out of me, saying fix up, look sharp, but it was really important that you knew that you had to fix up and look sharp. You come into the biggest business meeting that you do weekly, so you need to present yourself, and you should, people say, oh yeah, you shouldn't judge. Everyone in this room judges. Someone walks in the room, you're going to judge. So you shouldn't come in, if you're a builder, you shouldn't come in absolutely caked in shit. You should put your cleaner builder stuff on. You've not got to put a three-piece suit on because you come into a meeting because you're a builder, but you put your cleaner stuff on because you're walking into a meeting, and they say you never know who you're going to meet. You might meet your next big client, but I've got members, I've got mates in BNI who met the wife at BNI. A good mate of mine, Matt, met his missus at BNI. So if that's not a reason for you to come looking fresh, you never know. You never know who you're going to meet. But if somebody does walk in looking crappy and they turn up late, then instantly you're going to think, he's probably going to, if I refer him to my best client, he'll probably turn up looking like that, and he'll probably turn up late, and he'll probably be, so expected behaviours was really important. And I wrote down on my card, pins, because I'm a big geek on pins, and I used to always say pins, and it got to the stage where I was saying it all the time, where Scott saying again, and take the mickey at me. I know you're thinking, Scott take the mickey, it's not like him, but yeah, Scott taking the mickey, because I'd always say, get your pin on. I've got loads of stories to tell about wearing a pin, and I always say to people, if you haven't got a pin on, then it's not the end of the world, but it's not going to get noticed, so that you've got that little bit of upper hand. It's only a little thing, you've got a pin on. And I even said at conference, me and my missus have got a thing where she goes, oh, you're wearing your pin again. And I put a pin on for the funeral. And she's gone, really? Put it on? I said, it's me, why would I not wear the pin? And then we went to the funeral, and at the wake, someone turned around and went, BNI. And I just looked at the missus and went, because that's me, I always like to wear my pin, and I think it's it's a little thing. You know, some people in here haven't got the pin on, but if you're out in the day, you'll take your name badge off. So you're going to go to work, you're not going to have your name badge on, but you probably have your pin on. By advertising BNI, you're advertising 30 other members in this room, and you're advertising yourself. Because people will go, oh, what's that? And boom, you can go, yeah, I've made Danny, that you can start to sell BNI. So putting your pin on was a tiny thing which I really wanted to implement early on. And I know there's members in here who haven't got the pin on. I'm going to order a load of pins so you've got them, but the majority of people in this room compared to chapters always wear the pin, and they're on the collar, so I can walk around and look, you've got your pin on. That's a tiny little thing that will make so much difference, and it'll help you if you've got it on, and if you haven't, it's not the end of the world, but you haven't got that little upper hand of someone who has got the pin. The other thing was early morning. Now this one was a bit different this morning. Louise with me about it, so I wrote on my cards. I've not brought my cards with me because I rewrote them 20 times. I didn't even use them at conference because my hands were wet. But it was early morning. I wrote on my cards there 6 a.m. club. Now every time since I've been in BNI, I get to BNI for 6 o'clock. And I get there because the architect gets there at 6, the Sparky gets there at 6. I can have a meeting before my meeting, and I've always done that. So then since starting Masters, I get here at 6 o'clock. If I'm here, then you'll know I'm here at 6 o'clock. So I like to get here first thing in the morning, and that's what I've done. So by doing that, it started to make other people do it. So when I started the meeting and we were just doing through core, I'd turn up at 6, other people would turn up at 6. So then it started to become the culture that everybody's in the room early. And I've always said, you get to Masters early, and it's one of the very few meetings where you can turn up and it's buzzing way before the meeting. Now I said that at a conference, and I turned up this morning, there's quite a few people coming late, and Louise went, oh yeah. So that getting there early, it's same again, fix up, look sharp. If you're gonna turn up early, you don't want to get it, you don't want your visitor to turn up before you. That'd just be the worst thing in the world. And sometimes that does happen, but I'd say if you're here and you're up early, just get here. You might as well, that extra 10 minutes snooze is not worth it. So 6 a.m. club. And I also spoke about the parking outside. I did it every own chapter, and I've done it here, and I've had the banter with a few people like Chris, he does similar to me. When he was at Spartans, it used to be Kev. I used to get here early, and I still do parking, and I like to park my van right at the front door. When I'm in a stickered up van, it's the label right at the front door. But when I used to do that, then I'd get Chris or somebody else come in 5 minutes earlier, just so they can get that spot. And then you create that culture where people are getting here early, so that they get that spot. And then I step back, and it's not my chapter, but you've done something to say, fix up, look sharp, come presented, so this is going to be the show. All week you do your BNI, but then this is the show. And this is a part of the show. I put this up and I said, this is preparation for the show and the show. And I've always tried to think of it like that as Masters, because you want to really put on your show, you want to go, da-da, this is what we are, this is what we do. So in preparation for the show, right back as far as I can remember, you get this 15-minute reminder. Scott used to send these out, and you get everything on the presentation. Now people don't always have a presentation like we have, and especially up to date and accurate as we have here. So this is because you've got to have that time out thingy, and people do that, and that's the normal culture. Then there's a picture at the side there, which I put this picture on because it's a snapshot of what I would say Masters looks like. There's a visitor day or something going on there. So there's golden balloons, there's cupcakes on the side. We are putting on a show for everybody to say, da-da, we are Masters. And that is the kind of level that we do. The chapter charters in the background. I even mentioned about the banner. you know, the BNI tablecloth. A lot of people have got a BNI tablecloth, but not everybody's gone above and beyond and managed to print BNIMasters and put that on the tablecloth. That was printed by James. But it's going above and beyond. There's little tiny bits make masters of who you are. Now you've been recognised massively. The amount of people that have come up to me at conference, and these are like global or national people saying, I've heard about, and I can't say, yeah, this is me. This is yous that have done this. So if it's succeeding, it's yous, and if it fails, then it's probably end up being me. But it's yous as well, you know, it's the same kind of thing. So I put that on, and I mentioned Liam. I wanted to mention Liam on there because I think he goes above and beyond. I mentioned about him running coast to coast for the charity. I mentioned about every time he comes to the meeting, he's got multiple referrals. He's always looking fresh, and the Fix Up Look Sharp had to be mentioned there. So I had to give him a plug and a mention, and I named his company at conference. And then this is a snapshot. These are the pictures that have been on. So if you're on here, you've been on a conference and I spoke about you. So this was just a snapshot to show people of the culture of what Masters is. On the side there is the leadership team that you've got. Now I know this is just go off it a minute. I was talking about wearing badges and pins all the time and didn't realise that James is stood right in the middle with no badge and no pin. Anyway, back into the presentation. This was the leadership team that I really wanted to thank for helping us out get through the green and getting into that level, and especially Scott. Scott who stood at the side of me there, he's gone above and beyond, I would say, massively to get Masters into that culture of being in the green. So I mentioned his name, Scott Lloyd's Energy. If you want to try and save energy on your bills, Scott Lloyd's Energy, Google him, look him up, and try to mention people that you're on there. Liam's back on there again. Now, as I said at conference, Liam's one of the only guys who tells you how many days it is to Christmas in February. And as you can see there, he's looking fresh because that's the banter that we have, and he'll get there. And every time he comes to the meeting, he comes bringing his A game. He's dressing up, fixing up, looking sharp, bringing a contribution, and he's usually just got back off doing some kind of crazy run to help somebody else out. So that, I take my hat off to him, and that's the kind of member that you want in the room. Then above him, you've got a picture of Mark and Horton. Horton's a new member in the room, which I've said. Harrison, sorry, Harrison. No, Harrison. He's a new member in the room, and then you've got Mark. So Mark took on the role of chapter success coach, or I don't think we call it that, member success coach, whatever. Yeah, so mentoring coach. So he took on that role, and he's done so well and run with it and been brutal that you had to do it. Then everybody got the presentation. People look forward to finishing the chapter 6 success, and this the passport to success. And this is him just finishing his. This is a new member, and I put this picture up for two reasons. One, I had a conversation with Harrison previously, other than today, about how his business has grown so exponentially quick, and he was actually looking for some advice on whatever to how do you deal with this, which is great. But also Mark, back in the day when I first invited him along, Mark was my competition in one of my businesses because we had bathrooms, and when I invited him along, this is what I said, I didn't know you were going to speak today. Mark didn't want to come, it weren't his thing, and I said to him, come along. He's going, no, it's not for me, that thing. And it took me a good few times to invite him along to say, honestly, it's good for you. And then people couldn't think, like, why is a guy who's got a bathroom company inviting a bathroom company? Why is a guy who's a builder inviting a builder? And I wanted Chris in right from the start as the builder, and he didn't. The only reason Chris wasn't the builder from day one is because he was in hospital with his kid. At the time, I think the kid had been born or something like that. Yeah, so that's the only reason. And then at the time, there were 4 builders trying to get the seat. But I wanted to put a good builder in here and a good bathroom company in here, because if I had a builder and a bathroom company, if I had them jobs myself and I put a crap one in here, that's going to really affect me. So I'd rather get a good bathroom guy in, a good builder, and then that's chapter I look after. And it was so great to put the picture up now because Mark's really involved as a founding member, and it works for him. So it was brilliant to put the picture up. Roy at the bottom corner. I mentioned Roy because Roy's another person that at the first when I invited him, it wasn't for him. He said it was shy, he said it weren't for him. Not for me, that thing. And yeah, I remember Roy coming, and I remember he didn't do his presentation for about 3 weeks because he didn't want to speak. And someone else was saying the presentation, and now you can't shut him up, and he's done every role in the thing. And this is Roy inviting a visitor along, giving out his golden ticket, doing his bit, so I wanted to mention him. And then the top corner there, this lady is currently my chapter president. I know she doesn't look it, but she also has a funeral directorate. The full room was in stitches when I said this at conference. But she does a great job, and this is a snapshot of the culture of people giving it some. If you're going to come dressed up and you're doing some kind of, get involved, don't just put a black bag on and do 2 circles in it, I'm a ghost. You know, you go above and beyond and do that kind of thing. So that's why I put this on. The take-homes, people wanting to go away with their absolute take-homes or bits that they want to take from conference. And one thing I am quite proud of is a lot of people writing stuff down, unless they were drawing a picture of me or something, but they seem to be writing stuff down. Communication, make sure people know how you're going to speak to them and you get your message across. Roles, make sure everybody's got a role. Everybody should be part of the team and everyone should get involved. Relationships, make sure you show you care on whatever level. Make sure you show you care. Expected behaviour, to keep it in abbreviation. Fix up, look sharp. For me, that says everything. I know it's a joke and I know we have the banter about it, but you would fix up, look sharp. That's the chapter now, which when me and Louise looked at that chapter, that image, that was, it was great to see that it's a green culture, but we spoke about it and said to have a green chapter is not healthy continuously, because it means you're not growing, you've got no new members. But to have a green culture in a chapter is what everybody wants and would like. And this is us now. We've just been thanked for passing £10 million of the business. We're 5 years old. Thank you very much.